Hey guys, wow, you're still rubbing your eyes when the banging starts. Low, mechanical, steady, like a fist wrapped in metal. It's 4:17 a.m. and your entire house pulses with the sound. Your dog howls, confused and afraid, and your father, barefoot, bolts toward the front door. Before he can ask a question, the living room is painted in light. Cold beams slash through your drawn blinds. Flashlights. Voices yell something muffled through a speaker. Open the door, maybe. But you can't hear anything clearly over your own heartbeat. They're here. You already know who they are. ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But why now? Why you? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching this, I want you to drop your current location and local time in the comments, and let's go on the journey of today's story together. Your name is Mateo Jimenez. You're 17 years old. Yesterday, you had track practice and a calculus quiz. Last month, you gave a shaky but passionate speech at a city council rally, telling them what it was like to live undocumented. It made the rounds on TikTok, then Instagram, then Facebook, picked up by a reporter from the Dallas Morning News. Today, you're face down on the linoleum, wrists zip-tied behind your back, as one officer reads your mother a warrant written in bureaucratic shorthand. Administrative removal, expired entry, final order issued, phrases that mean everything and nothing. You see your sister in the hallway, mouth open, frozen. She's 12. She was learning about the First Amendment last week. As ICE agents sweep your house, one of them knocks over your school award plaque. The glass shatters. He doesn't apologize. Later, you'll find out that the arrest wasn't random. According to a recent ProPublica investigation, a growing number of young activists have found themselves quietly added to watch lists, flagged after speeches, post-interviews. You were one of them. You just didn't know. You close your eyes, feeling your cheek pressed into the cold tile. One last thought pulses in your head. This wasn't supposed to happen. You remember the room, packed, sweaty, standing room only. The folding chairs creaked beneath anxious parents. Banners in both English and Spanish hung lopsided on the back wall of the city hall. Keep families together. We belong here. Dignity is not illegal. You weren't supposed to speak. You were there to support your friend Carla, who was organizing her first rally. But when her voice cracked, midway through a story about her uncle being deported, you stepped forward. And then you spoke. You didn't plan it. No script. Just your voice. You said you were tired of living as a shadow. You said the system didn't just punish the undocumented, it erased them. You looked straight at the mayor and told him, if you don't fight for us, you're complicit. Someone gasped. Then the clapping started. You didn't know someone from a local news affiliate was live streaming. By the end of the night, your words were cut into reels and captions, reposted and remixed with stirring music and emoji overlays. This 17-year-old just spoke truth to power, the headline read on the independent social media. The views climbed. You got messages from strangers. A community college offered you a scholarship. But ICE saw it too. A month later, a weird call came to your school's front desk. Someone requesting your full name, date of birth, and schedule. The secretary flagged it, but didn't report it. After all, he's just a kid, she said later. The thing is, ICE doesn't forget. A Wired magazine expose had shown that ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations Division was now using software to scrape social media and flag high-risk undocumented individuals. Activists, organizers, teenagers, you fit the mold. You never asked to be the voice of anyone. You just didn't want to feel invisible anymore. And maybe you thought someone, somewhere would listen. What you didn't expect was that the spotlight would paint a target. You didn't grow up thinking of yourself as undocumented. You grew up thinking of yourself as fastest kid on the school's 4x400 relay team, the one who could solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute, the one who volunteered Saturdays at the local food pantry with your church group. You were Mateo Jimenez, junior at Elmsdale High, honor student, gamer, son of Rosa and Thomas, older brother to Elena. You just didn't have the right papers. Your family came from Guatemala when you were 3. Fleeing the scorched wreckage of post-war gang territories, your parents crossed the border with a toddler and nothing more than $90 in cash. They overstayed a temporary visa. You never knew until sixth grade when your classmates were applying for passports for a school trip to D.C., and your mom said quietly, "We'll have to skip it this year." The DACA application had been in motion for over a year, stalled by bureaucratic backlog. Your high school counselor helped file the paperwork, and you got attendance records, immunization cards, GPA transcripts, teacher recommendations, proof that you belonged. But then you spoke up, and that made you something else, visible. According to the Marshall Project, ICE had quietly increased surveillance and apprehensions of minors with pending DACA cases, especially in regions where local police collaborated with federal immigration enforcement. Your town? A model of such cooperation. It was a week after your speech when the janitor noticed a black SUV idling across from the school gate during lunch period. He thought it might be undercover narcotics. It wasn't. It was enforcement and removal operations, tracking school schedules using data collected from campus security contracts. You've been labeled non-compliant. Your application didn't matter anymore. Oddly enough, earlier that same day, ICE's Twitter account posted a cheerful update. Agents rescue 36 mistreated puppies in cross-border animal abuse case. The comments section was flooded with heart emojis. Meanwhile, they were planning your arrest. You weren't hiding. You were just living. And suddenly, that was enough to get you flagged. You're not a statistic, but they tried to make you one. According to track immigration data, ICE arrests of undocumented individuals under 21 increased by nearly 18% between 2022 and 2024. But those numbers only hint at the strategy beneath. When cross-referenced with social media activity and public records, a disturbing pattern emerges. Young people who speak out, who post videos, who file complaints or attend rallies, those are the ones more likely to face targeted removals. You weren't on ICE's top priority list. You didn't have a criminal record. You hadn't missed any school, let alone skipped a court date. But after your speech, after a picture of you holding a mic went viral, your name was added to a watch list flagged under the emerging threats category. It wasn't just you. A recent ACLU report revealed that at least 47 young people between ages 16 and 20 were arrested or surveilled within 60 days of publicly criticizing immigration enforcement in 2023. The youngest? A 15-year-old in Arizona who testified before a school board. Their justification? A memo surfaced by Reuters outlines a policy shift using the term precautionary targeting to describe detaining youth whose families had shown signs of public agitation or mobilization. In plain English, if your family spoke up, you could be next. You scroll through the numbers on your uncle's borrowed phone in detention. In 2023 alone, ICE conducted over 7,400 at-large arrests without prior warrants. Over 40% of those detainees had no prior contact with law enforcement. You read that line again. No, prior contact. But numbers don't tell your story. They don't say that you were on the honor roll when ICE came for you, that your baby cousin watched them shackle your ankles like you were dangerous, that they let you use the bathroom only once in 8 hours of transport, and only with the door open. And while they booked you into the Rio Verde Detention Center, ICE was publishing press releases about a multi-agency gang takedown in New Jersey, complete with mugshots and blurred tattoos. Your name wouldn't be listed. Your crime was something else, visibility. So what do you call this? Law? Order? Bureaucratic efficiency? You lie awake in your bunk, surrounded by the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant coughs of the other detainees. Men mostly, a few teens like you, nobody speaking above a whisper. The ceiling above you is stained like someone once threw coffee upward and gave up trying to clean it. And you think, is this justice? Your public defender says ICE acted within legal authority. You didn't have lawful status. No judge ever granted you protection. Never mind that you were mid-DACA process. Never mind that you were a minor. No court appearance. Just a notice to appear slipped under your mother's door after the fact. Some people think the law is the law. They point to it with the same moral certainty they use when quoting scripture. A headline on NY Post declared, "Teen activist complains about detention, ICE just doing its job." The comments were a battlefield. Play stupid games. Should have stayed quiet. Parents should be blamed. A few stood up for you, but most rage disguised as patriotism. But here's the twist. The law doesn't stand alone. It's shaped, interpreted, enforced. At every step, a person decides how to apply it. And in your case, someone chose to act, to prioritize a file with your name on it, despite knowing you had no record. Despite your school recommendations, despite the very memo from DHS stating minors with pending DACA apps shouldn't be immediate targets, unless they pose a public threat. You? A threat? The ACLU argues that targeting teen activists violates constitutional protections, particularly freedom of speech. They cite your case in a new brief, Jimenez v. DHS. You haven't seen the document yet, but they say your name's right there on the first page. And meanwhile, ICE shares a feel-good story about donating confiscated toys to orphanages in Honduras. You almost laugh. The same hands that zip-tied you delivering teddy bears. Tell us again, who decides what's legal and who decides what's right? Because lately, those two things feel further apart than ever. The day after they took you, your desk sat empty. Your backpack still under the seat, half a granola bar in the side pocket. The counselor, Mrs. Anders, held your AP Lit essay in her hands for longer than necessary. And that morning, something different stirred through the tiled hallways of Elmsdale High. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into chants. By third period, half the school was gone. They didn't walk out quietly. Carla, your best friend since freshman year, made signs the night before with a borrowed Sharpie in the back of a pizza box. Mateo is our voice. No human is illegal. ICE out of schools. By noon, the parking lot pulsed with hundreds of students, Latino, Black, White, Vietnamese, Somali, waving cardboard slogans in the muggy Texas heat. Teachers stood at the fence. Some clapped, some cried. A local officer who coached JV soccer joined in. He raised your school ID photo high, said your name out loud into a bullhorn. Mateo Jimenez is not a threat. Mateo Jimenez is a student, a friend, a kid who ran the 800-meter like lightning. Bring him back. The story made national news within hours. CNN covered the protest live, framing it as part of a broader youth uprising against crackdowns on undocumented youth. Even The Guardian ran a piece. Texas teens walk out for detained classmate, demand change. You watched the video on a flickering screen in the rec room of Rio Verde, sitting next to a guy who hadn't seen his wife in 11 months. You wanted to cry, but mostly you felt known. The local school board met an emergency session. They passed a resolution that night, condemning ICE's aggressive tactics within school communities and calling for a sanctuary designation. Of course, it had no legal teeth, but symbolically, it was everything. Meanwhile, ICE issued a rare statement denying that they target individuals based on speech or activism. But internal logs published in a ProPublica follow-up showed otherwise. Your file was labeled Community Agitator, Monitor. In the halls you once walked, your absence screamed louder than your voice ever had. You're back in your cell, staring at the worn concrete floor, trying to remember what normal used to feel like. Before the ICE vans, before the fingerprint scans, before the removal proceedings. The guards call you inmate, though you've never been convicted of a crime. You've read of Mice and Men 3 times now, mostly because someone left it behind, and it's the only book that hasn't been torn in half. You begin to wonder what the word American really means. Is it just paperwork, or is it something more? Because if it's about values, you were raised on them. Fairness, grit, speaking truth even when your voice shakes. If it's about contribution, your mother works 12-hour shifts at the care facility. Your father builds half the town's drywall, and you, until last month, mentored younger ESL students every Thursday. But now, your case number A112-678-904. Your face is pressed against a government file somewhere in Washington, D.C., and you feel more like evidence than a person. The Migration Policy Institute recently published a paper titled, Who Belongs? It explores how the language of legality erodes the soul of inclusion. You scribble part of it in your notebook. Statelessness is not just a legal term, it's an emotional exile. You underline that twice. Sometimes after lights out, you hear grown men crying softly into their rolled-up shirts. Tough men. Men with gang tattoos and hardened eyes who fold under the weight of missing birthdays and funerals. You never thought you'd relate, until now. The scariest part, you start forgetting your future. You used to dream of studying political science. Now, you dream of soft pillows, quiet dinners, one more chance to hug your sister without a fluorescent vest and bulletproof glass between you. And ICE? Today, they posted another PR moment. ICE hosts citizenship ceremony for 12 new Americans. The irony cuts like broken glass under bare feet. You wonder, if courage got you here, was it worth it? Or maybe courage isn't about outcome, it's about refusing to vanish. You stand in front of the immigration judge, wrists free, but spirit heavy. You've been transferred to a hearing facility 2 hours away, escorted like a felon. The courtroom has no windows, just pale walls, dry air, and a judge whose robe looks too stiff to wrinkle. Your lawyer places a hand on your back. It's the only warmth in the room. You testify. You speak clearly, slowly. You tell your story, not just about Guatemala, but a growing up Texan. You tell them about track meets and tutoring, about your mother's laugh and the time you nearly drowned at the lake, and your little sister's obsession with stickers. You tell them who you are, who you've always been. The government attorney doesn't care. Subject lacks legal basis for presence, she says flatly. Speech, though protected, does not exempt from statutory removal. You want to ask, since when did speaking make someone disposable? The judge takes it under advisement. The decision is postponed. You're returned to the detention center. No celebration, no closure, just waiting. Outside, though, something is happening. A petition demanding your release reaches 50,000 signatures. A congresswoman tweets your name with a hashtag, #FreeMateo. College students across the state hold sit-ins. A church in Arizona names you during Sunday prayer. You can't see any of it, but your lawyer reads it aloud during one visit, her voice cracking. They haven't forgotten you. You close your eyes and you're back at the rally again, holding the mic, breathing deep. And now it's time to ask the person watching this, what would you do? If you knew your voice might cost you your freedom, would you still speak? Would you march? Would you hide? Would you post your truth even if it made you a target? Because silence is easy. Silence is safe. Silence keeps doors from being kicked in before sunrise. But silence doesn't change the world. If Mateo's story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Demand more than legal logic. Demand human dignity. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the voice that keeps someone else from disappearing. Now take a breath. Let the lights dim in your mind. Let the hallway fade. Let the courtroom silence settle into something gentler. You've traveled through fear, resistance, heartbreak, and now, here you are, sitting quietly thousands of miles from Mateo's detention cell, but maybe a little closer in heart. His story isn't the only one. Every day, new names are added to lists. Families held in limbo, teens flagged as threats for being brave. And every day, behind the headlines and hashtags, there's a kid wondering if their future ends in a file folder. But here's the truth. You're not powerless. Whether you're watching from New York or Nevada, from El Paso or Portland, your voice matters. You can raise it, use it, shape it like a light in the dark. If you have papers, privilege, position, lend them to someone who doesn't. If you vote, let it count for those who still can't. If you teach, teach empathy. If you lead, lead loudly. And if you're like Mateo, young, scared, unsure, remember this. Courage doesn't mean being unafraid. It means acting anyway. It means knowing the cost and choosing to matter anyway. So as the screen fades, let your heart stay open. Let the stillness sink in. Let this be more than a story. Let it be a beginning.